wrestling fans, this is Dustin J. Markowitz coming to you taped, as always, from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing you yet another edition of your favorite bowling show, Bowling Evolved. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime. He's a PBA millionaire, a 5-time PBA national champion, and you know what? We used to call him Gillette because he's the best you can get, the one and only Eric Forkel. Eric, how you doing tonight?
I like that. That's nice. Man, we finally got a new intro after a year. It's about time you do your job.
Hey,
very good.
This is our 1-year anniversary, believe it or not.
Exactly. Start doing your job. Start earning the big bucks we're paying you.
Yep,
oh, that's right. We don't. That's right. We don't pay you. That's right. I forgot. Okay.
Well, you know, we talked about it on Facebook today. I put a post up, and I want to say, first and foremost, that we really appreciate the support that we've had from all of our listeners. I wish that we were able to produce more shows and be as, what's the word I'm looking for, Eric?
Good?
Yeah. Not quite where I was going, but...
Oh, okay.
As I mentioned, you know, this is a side project for us. It's a labor of love. It's something we both very much enjoy doing, but unfortunately, it doesn't pay the bills at this point. So
it doesn't? Oh, no. No wonder why I haven't had the electricity for about a month or two now. Jeez, okay.
All I know is that I've had more top ramen in the last year than I've had in my entire life. But
well, you know, it is a labor of love, and we enjoy doing it. We enjoy talking about the sport that we grew up in and the sport we love, or the game we love, whatever one you want to go, and whether it's the past, the present, or the future. We offer our little humble opinion, and we go from there.
Absolutely. And with this being our 1-year anniversary, again, I want to say thank you to everyone that has supported us, all of our fans, our friends. It's been really a fantastic ride. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into our topics tonight. A lot of very interesting things on tap, and I think one of the best places we can start would be the most recent PBA event that was televised, well, I suppose USBC event, which was the US Open. A very controversial show, I think would be the correct word here, Eric. Would that seem accurate to you?
Yeah, it had some. I can't explain it. It was interesting, to say the least. I remember the U.S. Open shows from the past, of course, because I always figured I get a chance to see Pete Weber bowl for sure, because Weber always bowls great on that pattern. And it was interesting this year with having the women also on the show, and, of course, the Battle of the Sexes match at the end, which myself personally I thought was a little anticlimactic. I would have much rather have seen something like that maybe put on another show, maybe have a special show for that kind of stuff, maybe along with the team bowling, or, you know, maybe you have all the U.S. Open champions, because there was a senior U.S. Open champion men's, and there was a senior U.S. Open champion women's. So why not have all 4 of them bowl and do it for charity? And they could have maybe done something like that, because they do have the senior versions. Amleto won it here in Vegas, and Paula Vidal won it back there where it was. So they could have actually taken it a little step further, but of course they did not.
Yes. That
would have been nice if they did, but personally myself, watching that match at the end, I thought was way after the fact, and it didn't do much for me. I thought it was a little out of whack there. I didn't care for it.
I would have to agree with you as well. I thought that them taking away from the entirety of the show was really a misstep, at least in my opinion. I know some people would argue that this is the new route the PBA has taken, that this is how they're going to attract new audiences, but from my perspective as a 27-year-old bowler that follows the PBA, follows USBC, honestly, I felt like this was gimmicking what should have been a very prestigious event, which it is a very prestigious event, but when you have something like that after the show, it was almost like saying, okay, we had these 2 tournaments which were a week long and the best bowlers in the world, but now forget all that. It's all going to boil down to this one match, and I almost felt like it made both sides. If the men beat the women, it made the women's tournament seem weaker. With the women beating the men, it made the men's tournament seem weaker. It didn't seem like it really elevated either side, so it was almost like jobbing out one or the other. I don't know if the ratings reflected that was something people wanted to see, but I agree with you, Eric. I think that there's many other spots that they could have an event like that, including, I like the idea of including the seniors as well, but instead we were greeted to what they put on TV, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that really great bowlers that made the show were unable to perform their craft on television.
Yeah, there was a few because of the time. They didn't even get their match on TV. They bowled off camera, I believe. And I just, like I said, the whole thing is, I understand what they're doing, but it just, and I don't even know if that was the PBA's call, by the way. Something tells me that has something to do with the USBC. Maybe this is what they wanted, that was part of the stipulation. We have the men and the women bowl together, and guess what? At the end, we're going to have a $10,000 match, which more than likely between you and I and whoever the other 10 people are going to listen to this show, well, I'm sure they split the money up. They each took $5,000. I doubt it was a winner take all $10,000 because it's a fun thing to do after the fact. And hey, let's just bowl and we'll just split it down the middle and whatever we bowl. And the fact that there was very little emotion in the match, they just kind of went through the motions for the most part, tells me more than likely a deal was already made prior to that. So once again, it's a gimmicky kind of thing. I think it has a place. Like I said, I would have had the 2 senior champions in there as well at a different time. Maybe you showcase it. Maybe you have it at the end of the year in Vegas when they're going to have all the shows there for the
World Series.
For the World Series, yes. I know there is a senior event on that as well. The top point getters at the World Series are doing a show for them, but at the World Series, that could have been a place, because they have their events there, that could have been a place to showcase the U.S. Open champions in a match. I thought that could, or have all the majors get together and bowl a match, or something like that. I just thought sticking it at the end of that show was a little peculiar. It just, for me personally, it didn't do much for me.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I believe that they could have really done so much more by having one of these matches on, even one of the PBA League events. It would have been nice to have seen something like that, because to me, the PBA League is a gimmick event as well. I know they're trying to...
Of course it is.
They're trying to do these different things, and I don't know if it's necessarily the right path. We've discussed on air and off air, frankly, opinions, and I just don't know. It doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't grab my attention, and I think that demographic of, maybe I'm wrong, of course, but you would think that you would want to appease the bowlers that have supported the PBA all their lives, and to me, this is kind of going the opposite way. My opinion, of course.
I think so, and that's probably something we could put out there to our listeners. They can. What was your feelings about having the Battle of the Sexes match? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it was a gimmick? Did you think it had its place? Or did you think it was something exciting you'd like to see all the time? I think we should put that out there, and they can definitely write us and let us know.
I completely agree with that. I would love to hear some different opinions. I know just around my local bowling center, several people who had watched the show had their own interesting perspectives, but it seemed to be the general consensus was you watch the majors, you watch PBA events to see all of the matches, you want to see the different things, and unfortunately, we don't get enough live shows as is, and this event really, it was sad. It was very sad.
Yeah, I would think with a live event, you would have liked to have anybody who made the show, you'd have liked to have seen everyone, and that wasn't the case. So that's, to me, it's a big downer, big bummer. But again, maybe I look at things a little bit from the way things were in the past. My gosh, I remember back in the day, I made a show at the U.S. Open, and they had the top 5, of course. The women weren't bowling with us at that time, but anytime you make the show there, you want to be on TV.
Absolutely. Now, Eric, I do got to ask you, though, what was it like making a U.S. Open in 1968? I was always kind of curious about the...
Well, I thought it was actually 52. It was actually 8 years before I was born. And it was really interesting, to be honest with you. I was like, well, no, that's not true. But no, that was not correct. I made it in 94, which is damn near 20 years ago. And... I had a great match. Of course, I lost to Parker Bone, who went on to lose to Justin Romig in the final match, but it was a great week. And Matter of fact, I saw that show not too long ago on YouTube. For some reason, I was playing around, and I saw it, and I'm like, I remember that ring in 7 that cost me the match, but that's another story. But yeah, the U.S. Open, that was always a prestigious tournament. You know, it always has been. And you know, lately, in the last so many years, you always see Pete Weber on that show because he bowls fantastic, especially on that condition.
Certainly, definitely was the favorite going in.
And I picked him once again, and I was surprised that he didn't get to that final match. But then again, Belmonte bowled fantastic all week, and of course, when the TV rolls around, he shoots a $150 or 60, which happens quite often. And there you have it. All that week's work got you second place, which is okay. But I'm sure you would have much rather have won the tournament. But it just goes to show, you know, they were talking about how great he is, and he is very, very good, but how he led by almost 10, 15 pins a game over the field. You can lead by 100, 200, 1,000, 500, but when you bowl that last match, all those pins don't mean anything. It just means you've earned a spot to bowl for the title. That's all it means.
Absolutely, absolutely. With that being said, though, I think that's a good segue to go into another topic which has been kind of, at least on the West Coast, around the water cooler, so to speak, and has made some Facebook news. We have talked, Eric, many times about the different tournament clubs that are involved in Nevada and California. One in particular, the West Coast Senior Tour, run by Dick Sanders. Now, an interesting bit of news came out about Dick changing the format of the West Coast Senior Tour from a 50-year-old minimum age to a 60-year-old minimum age in order to bowl these events, which is a very unfortunate circumstance for a lot of bowlers. Now, Eric, obviously you've been a competitor on the West Coast Senior Tour, which essentially I would consider almost like a PBA regional tour. Would that be accurate to say?
Somewhat, with a lot less players, of course, and there's some really good players in the West Coast Seniors, or at least there was. There still is some, but it has shrunk through the years because of a lot of things. Entry fees, economy, traveling, hotels, lack of sponsorship, lack of a really good prize fund, even though it's most of it comes from your entry. You just don't get the, scratch bowling, unfortunately, as we have discussed, has declined quite a bit. And Mr. Sanders feels that if he, at one point in the West Coast Seniors, it was actually 45 and above. Then it was 50. Then it was back down to 45. Then it was 50. Then it was 60. Then last year it went back to 50, or this past year 50. And now next year he's going to go back to 60 because he's trying to find the magical cure to get people to come bowl. Well, raising it to 60 is really ridiculous because there's no other senior organization professionally that I know of that starts at 60. I always felt it's a good idea to build from the ground up instead of the top up. You're trying to build this thing from the top once again, and you're just taking care of the few 60-year-olds who bowl instead of trying to cultivate new people trying to come into the organization. He would say, well, I tried that this year again, and I didn't get a lot of turnout. Well, he did it the year before. He had it 60 and over, and he had less of a turnout. So the turnout, in my opinion, because I've been bowling his thing for a while, that has nothing to do with the age. It's today's economy, today's lack of scratch bowlers in general. But the sad part is, for anyone who's turning 50, now they don't have a place to go bowl on the weekends in a senior organization. Christ, they got to wait till they're 60. And by that time, who knows? I doubt anything will be left. So it's just another bullet hole in the sport of bowling for scratch bowlers. In other words, it takes another piece out of it. The bowlers from the ages of 50 to 59 have now losing a chance to compete on the weekend. For the 6, 7, or 8 of the guys who did it, who were in that category, now they don't have nothing. And the guys who are over 60, well, they'll keep bowling, but they don't travel that much from Nevada to Southern California because they don't want to go and do it.
Sure.
So you're cutting off your nose to spite your face because his complaint is he feels that the 60-year-olds can't compete with the 50-year-olds. Well, that's the same way on the PBA National Tour. There's plenty of new 50-year-olds out there on the Senior Tour, but you got all the guys who are still in their 60s competing. Of course the younger guys are going to have a little bit of an advantage, besides most of them being Hall of Famers going out there and very good, the sport, it's always driven from the bottom up. New talent, younger guys. It is what it is. But now you're just going to eliminate a group and say you guys can't bowl anymore. Well, now you're going to have those same old 60-year-olds who want to bowl, and that's it. It's like a darn coffee club now. It's like a book club. You just go hang out and you read books.
Yeah.
Because you're eliminating good bowlers. I'm not even talking about myself, but you're eliminating some good players who want to compete. It's ridiculous. Why do you turn away money? Why would you turn away entries? Because he feels if he loses 4 or 5 guys on one end, he may pick up 10 or 15 on the other. But that didn't happen last year, so it ain't going to happen next year. So the whole thing is a joke.
Eric, would you agree with the statement that this is not something that's isolated just to the West Coast Senior Tour, though, that this is something that happens frequently in many different tournament clubs, rules and regulations that are put into place to appease a few and not looking for the greater good of the sport?
More than likely, of course, and that's the problem, because you can't, like I said, things are put in place. And senior bowling or senior competition, it's 50 and over, okay? And if you're having a hard time competing in that environment, well, go home and practice and get better and then go back. But to say we can't have those people around because it's going to make the other guys go home, that takes everything against the competitiveness in sports. And that you compete for the love of the game, and especially in bowling, there's not a lot of money to begin with.
Sure.
These prizes are, even though you pay a good entry fee, first place is usually anywhere between $600 to $800. Every now and then it pays $1,000. Unlike in Texas, they run the SASBA, which is very popular, and they run the entry fees are very similar to what they pay on the West Coast, but they have a lot more entries because people back there in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, they love the competition and they bowl, whether they're bowling against Gary Dickinson, Dale Eagle, Mark Williams, David Ozio. They don't care. They just want to compete. They like the challenge of bowling against better bowlers. Then that way, if they happen to beat them or bowl well, they can feel proud of their accomplishment. Unfortunately, in my opinion, everybody out here on the West Coast, they rather get rid of or eliminate the better players so they can feel better about themselves, at least bowling well that way. That's how they can look themselves in the mirror and go, wow, I bowled great this weekend. I beat a handful of other guys in my category, but I didn't knock out any of the really good players. They seem to like that a little bit more. And that's why, in my opinion, the SASBA is still doing well, even in today's economy. They don't do as well as they used to, but if you go to their website and check out their stuff, they do a really nice job. They've got all kinds of events, 4-man events, 3-man events, doubles, singles, men, women. They just do a heck of a job. Even in today's tough environment, they still have good prize funds. They still have a lot of great bowlers who are bowling, and people still show up and bowl.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest issues, and this is coming from my perspective as a former tournament coordinator, and even with what we ran during the Laughlin Cup, is that even though the entries might be down, there are still ways to make bowling worthwhile and have people come out to your events. I think one of the biggest issues facing bowling promotion is that many promoters are so stuck on what worked 40 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. When it comes to innovation, they don't have what it takes anymore. I mean, even things that worked 5 years ago can become stale if you're not willing to make the change. Now, one thing that you see frequently as well, and Eric, I know you've seen this all the time, especially here on the West Coast, is you'll see people make the argument, well, we don't want certain bowlers to compete because it scares other bowlers. Well, with that being the case, why not divisionalize? Why not offer different incentives? There's so many different things that you can play into, but you simply don't see it. I don't understand why so many people are against simple change.
But here's the deal, especially in the West Coast seniors. A few years ago, they did have 2 divisions. Matter of fact, if you were over 60, you could double dip, so to speak. You could qualify in the main division, but then there was enough bowlers that if they didn't make it in the regular group, the 60 and overs had their own finals, and they would have, and so you could basically double dip. You paid 1 entry to have 2 shots to make the finals, whereas if you were under 60, you had 1 shot. Well, as time has gone on and the fields have shrunk down, you've got more 60-year-olds than 50-year-olds bowling. That's just the way it's turned out. So the handful of 50-year-olds who bowl, there might be 5 or 6 or 7 of them. Out of those group right there, those guys normally do very well. Well, I guess according to Mr. Sanders, that upsets all the 60 and overs. And now in his mind, if he eliminates that group, they're just going to come out of the woodwork in those 60 and overs and come bowl. Well, I got news for you. That's not going to do it unless he puts 1,500 on top guaranteed.
Sure.
It didn't do it last year, and I don't think it's going to do it next year. This thing has been dying for years, and the only thing that aggravates me the most is the conversations I have with him on the phone of coming up with ways to try to make this thing better. And then when somebody turns around and says, yeah, I'm going to eliminate the 50-year-olds again because that's going to do it, I take that as a complete slap in the face, and I don't like it.
Sure.
And anyone who's in their late 40s getting ready to turn 50 and who wants to bowl competitively on the weekend and have a good time, maybe make a few bucks because there ain't that much to make, now they cannot bowl. So once again, you've stopped people from doing something they love and enjoy on the weekends, who maybe they don't want to go and bowl the regionals because it's a little bit too far, but now they can't even bowl the West Coast Seniors. So once again, scratch bowling takes a hit unless you're 60 and over. I have a lot of friends 60 and over. Some of my best friends are in their early 70s. But an organization always needs to be built from the ground up. And in my opinion, when you turn 50, that's a senior bowling, and it needs to be cultivated for the 50 and up, not for the guys over 60. But unfortunately, Dick lives in the past to a certain degree, even though he says he tries to make changes. The changes he makes, they just, maybe lowering that entry fee a little bit might be a smart way to go. Maybe come up with some other innovative ways of doing things. But people don't support him like they used to. But for some reason, he just keeps eliminating those darn 50-year-olds who happen to bowl well in hopes that it's going to make more 60-year-olds come back. I guess it might. But after what I saw last year, it did not. And that's why he brought it back down to 50 again, where it should be.
Yes.
Any senior bowling across the country does not start at 60. But because in his mind, he's got to take care of these whiny, crying 60-year-olds, he feels he's going to start it at 60. Well, what the heck? Might as well have a 60-year-old, a 70-year-old division then, because you've got a lot of 70-year-olds who bowl too.
It's
a shame.
It is a shame, and I think before we go into our first break here, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but at the same time,
beat away.
Yeah, this goes into something we've discussed on the show before, and we'll discuss again, I'm sure. But the issue of eliminating bowlers from competition, it's like the handicap issue with certain tournaments and whatnot. You see one bowler that averages 230, so all of a sudden the handicap gets raised up to 100% of 250 or something ridiculous. Now all of a sudden you're saying, well, we don't want this guy to bowl, but let's say it's a city tournament, for example. You raise a handicap up to 100% of 230. This guy who was bringing in 2 teams, one in a B division, one in an A division, that bowled doubles twice, that bowled singles, now has pulled out all of his money. So you didn't just eliminate a single bowler, you eliminated 9 bowlers, realistically.
Exactly.
And, because of one person being over a cap. I really sincerely wish that there was a way that people would be willing to embrace the people that go out there, average high, be the best that they can be, as opposed to being afraid of them. I think that's what separates bowling from a lot of other sports, that the incentive to become the best bowler you can be does not pay off in the long run. I hate to say that, and I know that's very controversial. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that would say I'm out of my mind for saying that, but realistically speaking, it's like saying why you go bowl a tournament where it's a 210 cap on bowling the tournament. There might be a lot of money in that cap. That's why people sandbag.
Exactly. That's why that's sandbaggers heaven. That's why there are a lot of tournament clubs, and you know who they are. They run these big payoff, big tournaments, and you see some of these people who win, you're like, there's no way that guy should be bowling in that. He's way better than these people, but he's found a way to stay in there and do what he does, and he makes a lot more money than some of the better players.
Manipulate the system. So
absolutely.
It's unfortunate.
Because scratch bowling is in its purest, simplest form. The bowling pins don't know if you're 20-year-old, 30, 40, 50, 60. Pins don't know how old you are. So in other words, if I'm in my 50s and I shoot 250 and someone in their 60s shoots 260, there you go. Those pins don't know how old you are. So, I mean, there's no difference in that 250. And I used to argue with him all the time. He said, well, if Eric Forkel, I said, stop using my name. There are a lot of guys over 60. There's a few guys who are over 70, like a good friend of mine, Dick Baker, and Ron Winger. These guys are really, really good. And there's many tournaments where they have been the leaders, kicked a lot of guys' butt, and they're 20 years older. So stop throwing the age thing around. Use it. You know, your job, I always felt, is to get as many people to bowl as possible. And you shrink that field down. In other words, let's just make it 70 and over. That means you're going to have 6 guys at every tournament because there's only 6 guys who are over 70. Why are you limiting your resources? You're limiting your resources in hopes of bringing in a few older people to make up for it. Again, foolish and ridiculous.
Yes.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It didn't work last year when he did it. And then, so now the statement was or is, we tried the experiment of going back to 50 to 59, and we have to move forward. That didn't work. Guess what? Nothing is working. That has nothing to do with it. Get a better entry fee that people can afford. Create a better prize fund somehow that if you finish lower than third, you don't lose money. If you have to finish first or second in a tournament to make any money, what's the incentive to go? Oh, unless you're a millionaire and you got nothing else to do. I'm just saying, why would you go? Why would you spend $400, $500, $600 to win to break even?
Exactly.
Who does that?
Yeah. Well, with that being said,
that's my rant.
Yeah,
got to have a weekly rant. This could be part of our new thing. I think we need to have a new part of our show called the weekly rant.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff we could rant about. I was gonna say, we'll change the name of the show to West Coast Bowling Ranting. That's going to be the new.
I have a feeling the ranting could be all over the country, if not the world. Everybody's got their own private little rants, but I think we're going to have a weekly rant. We'll find something to rant about, and I think we maybe let's ask our people, our fans, if they want a weekly rant too. Give them something to rant about.
Heck, we'll bring them on the show. We'll let them rant themselves. See what they have to say.
Rant away. Like it.
Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us into our first break here. When we reset and come back, we're going to talk about some other opinions and news, one of which is some sad news with the untimely death of John Jowdy. We'll reflect a little bit on our memories of John Jowdy and a few other topics. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, bowling fans. Eric, we had our little rant session there, but I think it's time to take it to a much more serious and reflective note with the death of John Jowdy. Many people in the bowling world have known John either personally or through his writing. I know you have a lot of stories to talk about. Before we get into yours, because I know you had a lot of personal experience, I just want to say, myself personally, as a journalist, I read John Jowdy growing up. I thought some of his work was just absolutely phenomenal, and it was almost as if his writing was required reading, if you will, with any bowling journalist. When you saw a John Jowdy article, you were almost guaranteed to learn something you didn't know before. And it's really a shame that his passing is going to leave a very big void, in my opinion, in the bowling world, not just as a writer, but as a person that did anything he could to help promote the game, and I think he'll be sorely missed.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, I was fortunate enough to spend many years with him, of course, when I was on tour and working for Columbia back in the 90s. Jowds was great with his signature cigar that he never lit, by the way. He just kept it in his mouth. But he was the coach of, he coached some of the greatest bowlers of all time. One of them, my good friend and roommate, David Ozio, and, of course, the entire Columbia staff. And the thing about Jowdy was he worked with everyone. Even if you didn't work for Columbia, he would work with you. And he traveled for so many years out on the pro tour. He was the sales rep for Columbia. And besides giving out the little slips that helped the players go get equipment, he was, guys would go to him for help with their game because, believe it or not, back in his day, he was a pretty awesome bowler back in, I think he was out of San Antonio, if I remember correctly, growing up. He was a top player back in the, I guess, 50s, 60s back then. And so he had some experience of his own. And then when he got out on the pro tour as a sales rep for Columbia, he started working with some of the top players out there. When you're out there every week watching the great bowlers, you learn when they're bowling good, when they're not what they need to do. He became, Holman's coach and Ozio's coach and all the great players. And then he became a bit of a character. And then, of course, all his writings, he was able to write the stories out there and all his dealings out there. And I just remember, again, when I first got out there in the early 90s, he was working for Columbia. And I always was, listening to him and talking to him and getting some help on my game when needed. And then when I got a chance to actually go to work for Columbia back in '94, it was great. It was like having your own personal coach out there. And if you remember, he would write he would take players' names and he would give them little nicknames. Little anecdotes, and he would, he loved to do crossword puzzles. He's a big crossword puzzle guy. And he always liked to do that kind of stuff, and he had nicknames for all the players. And he had his all-miss team, if you remember. He would list the guys who were, boy, terrible spare shooters, and he had no problem hanging on them. And, and I think he would do it just to help to get them to maybe work harder on their spare game, so to speak. But I think I got on that team 1 year, and I was fortunate that it was only the 1 year because I had some trouble a few times on the TV shows. I missed a few spares, and that put me on his all-miss team. But Giles was great, and he always, he always had a smile. And he always had an opinion, of course. And he was definitely an icon, a maverick, I guess you would say. And hadn't seen him too much in the last couple of years. His health issues finally caught up to him. I mean, I believe he was 92 or 93. It finally caught up to him, and so it is. Another one leaves us.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. We've had a lot of very sad stories over the last couple of years. There's actually an article that just went out. One of our writers, Brian Hirsch, who writes for the Desert Bowler and, of course, is writer for Bowling Evolved and a big friend of our show, actually did a piece talking about some of the tragedies that have struck bowling and also what bowlers have done to unite because of them. I think one of the nicest things that people are, at least in the bowling community, we all have our complaints, we all have our issues, but I think the one thing is that bowling is still a giant family. And Brian really kind of summarized that just simply by everyone that's reached out. And I think if you do have an opportunity, please read that article. It'll be available on bowlingevolved.com, or of course you can check out the Striking Spotlight in the Desert Bowler. But it's really interesting, the community of bowling, and I feel very fortunate that I'm part of that community. And Eric, I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, it is kind of a tight-knit community. I mean, when something goes on or something happens in this industry, everybody knows about it. And, obviously when somebody passes away, right away it's big news. Or when something, sad like that happens, everybody in the industry knows about it and everybody's going to talk about it. So if you were to go on Facebook or go into any of the social media, you're going to find all kinds of stories on John Jowdy, from whether it's from Columbia itself with a press release or from the PBA, just like when our good friend Barry Gurney passed away a few weeks ago.
Yes.
It's news, and especially, it's not going to be on the local news where you live. It's not that type of news, but in the bowling world or the bowling circles that we live in, it is big news. That's just the way it is. Everybody knows what's going on, and although there are a lot of great things that happen, everybody gets excited over here and there. Unfortunately, there's sad things as well, because with the good, you got to have the bad, because if there was no bad, there would be no good. So you got to take it. It's just another piece of life. And speaking of the good, I'm glad to see and hear that your father is doing much, much better.
Yes, that was something that we had kept off the show. Obviously, we took a little time off there, and part of the reason was there was some issues with my father. even just talking about it, it was very difficult. My dad was having some heart issues, and fortunately, they were able to correct the problems. Had some surgery done in California, and they did fantastic work. And again, goes to show you the bowling community really rallied behind him locally. And my father, for those who may or may not know, runs the Riverside Lanes in Laughlin, Nevada. Very, very strong involvement in the bowling community. Was a member of Hammerstaff and was with Brunswick for a short time. And it's good. It's a good feeling to know that there's so much love and respect still in the bowling world. You might not see it all the time, but
well, no, of course not. It's like like families. There's a lot of love in the families, but brothers and sisters fight all the time. Families fight all the time. But no, I guess everything you've told me, you've heard, your dad is basically turning into a new man.
Yes.
He's lost a bunch of weight. Things are getting better, and obviously this had to happen to give him looks like a very healthy rest of his life.
Absolutely, and I'm very happy to say that my father has lost, I believe, about 125 pounds at this point. So
wow,
it's
like I said, it's fantastic. I mean, you don't want to get sick and have this happen, but sometimes there's a reason for everything, and the silver lining is it's going to give him a new lifestyle for the second half of his life, and sounds very good.
I jokingly say he's half the man he once was.
Exactly.
And I also will say this, with his weight off, my dad's a pretty strong player himself. He was a regional player back in the late 70s, early 80s. With the weight off, who knows? He might be getting back out into bowling where he can compete again.
Well, he can't bowl the West Coast seniors because he's not old enough. And the sad part is, twice a year they come to Laughlin, and your dad's had him there for many, many years, but next year he's not old enough to bowl. He's got to wait till he turns 60.
Well, with the weight off, it is definitely a possibility. So we're going to see what happens.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yep, absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to take us into our second break. When we come back, we have some wrap-up, some other positive news, including updates on the very first Bowling Evolved League, which was going on in Laughlin over the summer. Some good news for myself, and some highlights and other information for everyone involved with Bowling Evolved. Stick around. And once again, welcome back, bowling fans, and thank you very much for joining us on our 1-year anniversary of Bowling Evolved. It's been a very fantastic run. I know I've had a lot of fun doing this, a lot of great experiences. And Eric, if you would have told us when we first started the show that we would have done what we've done, including being at the World Series of Bowling and having the guests on the show that we've had, I don't know. I don't know what I would have expected.
It has been pretty good. I'll tell you what. It's what started off as an idea, your idea pretty much, and it's turned into something that's kind of cool, and we actually enjoy it. And who knows how much longer we can keep pushing this thing? But I'm game if you are.
Hey, as long as I have the free time, I'll be happy to do it. That's the biggest issue. Time is money, as they say, and
time is money, and there's always something going on in the bowling world. And the good part is we'll be able to talk about it. And as long as people are interested, then we'll keep doing this. Because if the interest stops, then we stop too.
Yes, absolutely on that aspect. And do want to throw out some congratulations to. First off, to Tyler Hunsaker. Tyler, who has been with us pretty much since the beginning, helping us design the website and do some of the technical side of things. He was actually accepted into BYU, which is fantastic. So congratulations to Tyler. We wish him the absolute best.
Big time.
He did some fantastic work. I don't know if our listeners have had a chance to look at our mobile app and our website, but he's really done some incredible things, and I think he deserves every bit of good that comes out of this.
Yes, I'm very happy for him. Good for you, Tyler.
Also want to say that the Bowling Evolved League has been very successful. 12 teams of trios bowled this summer to prove that scratch bowling can still work.
Are they over 60?
No, believe it or not, they're they're all over 70.
Oh, perfect. So, no wonder why it's working, because you always works when you're over 70. I get it. Okay, good. Yeah, good.
But no, a very, very wide mix of bowlers. We had a 600 cap on the different teams, and everyone seemed to really enjoy themselves. We have 1 week left to go. I know for me, not bowling any scratch league in a half a decade was a very interesting experience to come back and bowl scratch again, and the averages truly reflected the competition. It's fun to see everyone bowling beyond their means and not having the complaints that you normally would have with a lot of traditional handicap leagues.
No, I think you told me. It sounds great. It sounds like we've had a very good start to the inaugural. Very nice.
We actually are on the books to run it again this winter, and our tournaments will be coming up. So again, check out everything on bowlingevolved.com. And last but not least, I'd like to send a thank you out to Richard Brindisi, who nominated myself for a Tri-State Communications Award. I have to say I was a little taken back by that. It's a very big honor to be nominated for bowling journalism and my dedication to help promote bowling in the tri-state area, bringing the first talk show to Laughlin, involved with the sport, and it's it's pretty humbling. I have to be honest with you, Eric. It's a very humbling experience to know that people view you in that way.
Yes, but it's highly deserved because you've done a good job in that area, and you deserve a little bit of recognition. Mm-hmm. Everybody deserves a little bit of recognition when they do something that's needed to be. And I couldn't be prouder to have you as my partner. Hopefully, you're going to win this thing, right? Are you the only one who's nominated?
I have no idea. I don't even know the nomination.
Because if you're the only one who's nominated, I like your chances.
So do I. Unfortunately, realistically speaking, I don't see myself winning the award. I mean, it'd be fantastic if I did, but the Tri-State Award here, it goes from Clark County, Laughlin area, Bullhead City, which is Mojave County, and Needles, California. It's journalism as far as anyone in broadcasting, be it radio, be it the local TV, be
I see.
Yeah. So
do I need to send my friends here from Vegas down there to talk to a few people, and you know what I'm saying? Do the right thing.
Break some bones and
well, give them an offer they can't refuse. You know how that works.
Yes.
I need to do that.
It would be fantastic, but I'll be perfectly honest when I say I am just so thrilled that I was nominated, and I just, again, from the bottom of my heart, and this goes out to anyone that has supported, and we say this all the time, but anyone that has supported Bowling Evolved. There are so many great stories that people have told us, and just to me, it's very heartwarming to have someone come up to me and say, we were able to inspire them to think a little bit differently about bowling, or we were able to entertain them. That's what this is all about. I mean, we love hearing ourselves talk, don't get me wrong, but
some more than others, yes.
But in the end, this is really about allowing a forum to have some different opinions out there. We always kind of liken the show to be the talk show that you guys had when you go to the bar after bowling and you're talking to your friends, or you go into the pro shop, and it's really a fun, different look at the bowling world. And again, we appreciate any and all feedback. Bowling Evolved is your guys' forum. We're your liaisons in the bowling world. We just happen to have some other experiences, but again, this is all about you guys. We really appreciate it.
Well, like I said, we have some ideas coming up, some new things we'd like to try. I definitely like the weekly rant, of course. I know I've ranted a lot on that subject because it does bug me a little bit. But we may do that. We may have a weekly rant, and maybe we'll have people write in and give us their rant, and we'll discuss their rant on the show.
Absolutely.
And then that way, they could feel like they're not alone with their own rant.
And just a reminder to everyone that is listening, if you are not a fan of the Bowling Evolved Facebook page, you can reach us on facebook.com/Bowling Evolved. Reach us, of course, on our website at bowlingevolved.com and at our email, which is bowlingevolved@gmail.com. We do read any and all comments that come through. I know when Eric was actually on TV during the U.S. Open, we had some very kind words from one of our fans, which I do want to...
Senior U.S. Open.
Senior U.S. Open. Which I believe was Steven, never could say his last name, I want to say Friedfertig.
Okay.
It might be close, but he was actually following you during the show and said some very kind words.
And I didn't have to pay him. He just did it on its own, huh?
I know.
Wow.
It was strange.
It's scary.
Again, we do read everything that comes through, all emails, all comments. It all is welcome. And, of course, everything that goes on the YouTube pages as well. I know, I believe it was Barry Gurney's nephew had made a comment in regards to the interview we had with him at the World Series of Bowling, and he said it was nice to see his uncle in that light since he never had a chance to see him like that. And, that's what we're all about. We want to be there for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, we try to cover it all. We try to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly. Give every bit of everything. Yeah. There's a lot to talk about. We could talk for hours, but then you don't want to bore everyone to death. But there's always so much to talk about, and we do our best to cover most of the topics. And whether you agree with us or disagree with us, that's what makes it interesting to listen to. Because if we all agreed or we all talked about the same thing, to me that would be kind of boring. Got to have a little spice to it. So you got to have a point and a counterpoint. So, just like when Dustin likes to call this a sport and I like to call it a game, and even though I know it's really, for the better players, it is a sport, of course, but I like to play the devil's advocate there. That's okay. But there's just so many things to talk about, and I think we'll have another person I'd like to have back on is, she's been on before. We have to get Paula to come back on the show, Paula Vidad.
Absolutely, one of our very first guests.
And because she won the women's senior U.S. Open a week or so ago. And I believe she's competing, or they just got done competing down in Florida for Team USA senior competition, and I believe Team USA has won basically everything.
That doesn't really surprise me all that much, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, so I've been checking out the results on Facebook and what have you, and they've pretty much dominated and won everything. So there's plenty. So we'll have to have her back on again, and I'm sure that she'll have some interesting stories for us. But there's always interesting personalities to have on our show. And
very
maybe, once again, if people are interested, maybe there's somebody they'd like to have us have on our show, write in, and we will do our best to get a hold of them, and we'll put them on.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And with that being said, yes, we will end the show as well. The 1-year anniversary show of Bowling Evolved. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, for Eric Forkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Have a great night.
Good night.